Welcome to Cape Town. Welcome to the Mother City. Home of the Penguins and home to Seal Island. This popular tourist attraction out in the coastal region is promising to wine and dine you with some of the best sights and sounds of Africa, and is home to round 3 of the South African Endurance Series. Years old with the lap record of a 1 minute 6.7 set by Troy Dolenchik this year. Top speed of 265 kilometers an hour. 9 turns in this 3.2 kilometer circuit. 4 lefts and 5 rights will be challenging our drivers in a fantastic battle of 6 hours. Heading down to turn 1 after you get the green. It's going to be a way to fight it out. Side by side action into turn 1, powering your way through before you head into turn 2. A little bit of a blind apex that you're going to have to aim for, but if you're late on the brakes, you'll get it right. In through the kink, into the next right-hander as you stand onto the power. Following all the way through side by side is going to be a little bit difficult into the double right-hander. Down the incredibly long straight, 265 kilometers an hour, hard onto the anchors, and you will be running over 4 Gs of force before you flat back onto the gas across our start-finish line.
And that's right, Steve. Just after that incredible banking at Cape Town Corner, you're going to make sure that you've banked in a solid lap. And banking in a solid lap is exactly what needs to happen right now, because we have qualifying for the SAE, 6 hours of KILLARNEY. Tough challenge ahead for all of these racing drivers.
It's been a while since the series has come to Killarney and everyone coming with a bit of force. But with that being said, we've got to talk about our current qualifying, because we have 2 different classes. We've got our A's and our B's. That's depending on how fast or slow. If you are over the 1 minute 20, you'll be an A class, which is currently out of circuit. And if you're under if you're under 1 minute 20, you're going to be an A class. If you're over, sitting at 121, you're going to be in B class. So we got our fastest cars out on track.
Yep, and our classes, that is in terms of qualifying, but not class in terms of spec of car. So we just need to make that distinction. But how, let's call it Group B, Group A and B. How about we go with groups? I think that's going to be easier for us to follow. But Group A is looking like Inter Africa Racing, of course, Stradale Motorsport, Rico Barlow Racing, Di Matteo Racing, Hammond. We've got Andrew Horn also, Marius Jackson, Coastal Engineering Supplies, Moodley, Roach, Mia, GNH Racing, Graphics Supply World, of course, the Franco family there, and JP Standard. Those 14 are sitting in Group A.
Well, that being said, Bradley Limburg back into the Audi. Been a while since we've seen him. He's currently topping the charts with a 108 with the likes of Kolile Ledlaka running in 2nd place. Michael Stephen in 3rd place in the Norman Nova, with Romano Santori in 4th. And Oliver Hnatus going and fighting out in the Ligier JSP4 as he tries to make up the time, with Gini Giannacaro running in 6th as he charges his way through. There is that beautiful Ligier JSP4.
Oh, that Internaus Ligier looks incredible. Finally get to see it in full trim. Walk past their pits looking very relaxed. Of course, they're effectively hosting here, because they're locals, of course, very familiar with the Killarney International Raceway and the way things happen when it comes to the conditions. Now, I wonder if that's going to throw them off as much as it may throw off a lot of the visitors here. But we're not going to lean into that. Steve tends to force me to touch wood every time I talk about my amateur meteorologist skills, so I'm not going to go there. But I'm going to enjoy this incredible looking Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2 here, with Inter Africa, of course, having broken it in and gotten shaken down. Let's call it a shakedown over the weekend, and now it is finally in the trim the team has been waiting for. That is full steam in quali trim, and at the moment spearheading in terms of pace. But Brad Liebenberg seems to have changed that a bit with that 108.1, Tolile on a 109.6, so that has since changed. But that is a incredible car to look at. I mean, you can tell the intent, the commitment to the defense of the championship. This is a statement, if ever one needed to be made, by the defending champions in 2025.
This is the car you want to have from Lamborghini. It's got all the latest tech for 2025 and what you will find in many of the overseas championships. And, well, that being said, it also has a huge amount of climb to it. But Michael Seaven going and dethroning him from that second place puts in a 108.9 his best lap. Leclerc was only able to get a 110 on his last lap, so lots of work to be done, but not much time left. 1 minute and 46 seconds remain of this qualifying session before he's going to have to hand it over to Stuart White.
Yep. We're also, it's around sunset times. We're encroaching on sunset times at the moment, so we're going to get into the darker segment of the day's racing and getting prepared for tomorrow's race. So we're obviously going to be racing in the evening, so that's going to be appreciated by the racing driver to get acclimatized to what conditions are going to look like. Of course, the pace may not always look like what we see now in terms of lap time during the race. This is, of course, for grid position, which is a different factor entirely, but we're competitive nonetheless as we go into that left-hander that is going to see a lot of interesting maneuvers here. And you look, we're talking about just the amalgamation of classes when it comes to this qualifying. We have a handful of classes in total that run up to Class D, and that is going to be interesting to navigate in terms of space and traffic. When you look at, for example, an angry GT3 machine such as this Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2 in your rearview mirror, and you're in Class D going into, for example, for argument's sake, Cape Town corner, okay, or for argument's sake, going into turn 1 in that long left-hander, navigating these tricky parts of the circuit is going to be interesting.
It's all about commitment, and that's where utilizing the GT3s comes to handy. But Michael Seaven in that Norman Nova NP02, holding that second place, currently the smallest of the engines compared to the likes of Bradley Liebenberg in the Audi R8 Evo, and the same as Leclerc in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo. And 2. Oliver Natus, however, is in a car that's generally for track day racing. It's not a full-on prototype like everyone else, more of a futuristic look, holding his ground against the likes of the Ford Mustang, the IRC, which is a purpose-built space frame, all the way from Australia.
Yeah, there we go. It's purpose-built space frame from Australia. It's had an interesting story coming into what's the second round now. We're going to see it in full competitive trim, and so there's an interesting dynamic we discussed a bit, of course, off air, Steve, in terms of how is it punching above its weight, is it punching within, and getting that balance right in terms of performance with the car. But we've run down the clock here now when it comes to Group A for this qualifying session. So we're going to see these racing drivers peel into the pits and have a changeover now going into Group B for the qualifying to this afternoon.
Slowest time that will be starting out is Lanxa Janakro, sitting in 6th. He did a 1:16.0. Now, remember we talked about having whether you're under or over that 1 minute 20. Well, I think he's cleared it by 4 seconds and is going to be happy with that.
Yep, he's going to be fine with that. And of course, Janakaro and the GNH Transport team have yet to make a mark on the point scoring board when it comes to the championship. So a lot of work to be done by them, and they definitely have to be fully committed going into this round to make sure they come out with the benefits.
I gotta say, it's so nice to see a Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. First time ever on South African soil. We have an Evo 2 here, and it's with the Into Africa team putting a great show. You think about the South African Children's Series, we've got the Norman Nova MP02. That is a stunning prototype, the only one here in South Africa. We've got the likes of the Oliver Hinatus car, the Ligier JS-P4. We've got our...
we have Hintenhaus's Ligier in frame at the moment. Oh, man. Every car that passes by here so far on the banking at Cape Town corner just makes it look even more beautiful. And you get to appreciate just how much that angle is. Do you know how many degrees that angle actually is? It really is quite emphasized and quite emphatic. It makes a huge difference. And the entry there is quite important. You have to get a solid drive coming out of there. So it's gonna be interesting, especially also for the more, I say, aerodynamically inclined cars like the Ligier. That's going to be very, very entertaining to watch.
Also going through the back markers, but here is our Class B heading out, and most of them going to be our national Roadster V8 class, which is just absolutely stunning. But we will see a familiar number, the number 72, as the carbon car usually wears it, with Steve Clark and Mike McLaughlin, unfortunately not able to get their car fixed after the big impact, but managing to tag one of the national V8 Roadsters, and this is the same car that is raced in the class. They've entered it in Class A. It's a very capable car. We at least not forget that they were able to finish 3rd at SWAT Corps at the beginning of the year. So interested to see if they can have lightning in the bottle for the second time.
Yep, I believe they do. The tenacity between Mike McLaughlin and Steve Clark is palpable. Every time you walk through their garage, you can sense just how competitive they are and how much work is being done. Of course, Mike doing a lot of work on the racing driving side of things, and obviously Steve Clark, a lot of the setup, just the renditions of the competitive cars that we've seen over the past couple of years. He's responsible for a lot of the work behind that. So plenty preparation and commitment to getting the number 72 team in comfortable, let's say comfortably competitive positions when it comes to Class A in particular. So it's very calculating of them to be able to compete with this car in Class A, but to make sure that they're still in the running for a strong championship finish towards the end of the year.
Well, as everyone's starting their flying laps, trying to get it all sorted. We did see a few cars trying to weave left to right, gain as much heat as they can into the tires, ensure that the optimum temperature is getting a little bit chilly here at Killarney. That's going to play into how much grip you have. And also many of the drivers are starting to feel that little bit of understeer coming in as they feed the power on. So a little bit of a shake-up as they've had to wait so long. Lights once again coming as we head towards the darkness here in South Africa. Beautiful Cape Town Killarney circuit.
Oh man, just getting to appreciate it a lot more now as the number 72 there of Steve Clark makes his way around the circuit. Of course, we're running down the clock already, so every lap is going to count from here on out. If the tires are warm enough, you're going to have to commit and sit in a decent banker. The benchmark, of course, the reason why this is Group B of the qualifying and not A is because of the combined practice times that we saw, which saw this particular group going over the 1 minute 20 mark, and they have to then play in and around that benchmark and try to get as low as possible to be the following group of drivers after we've seen Group A go out. So far the standard flag bearer is Bottom Pretorius in that 262 V8 Roadster, the bright orange, unmistakable on the circuit of Pesty Racing, 1 minute 24.9. So let's see how his competitors in the V8 Roadster class are now going to respond to that. Not that they would be aware at the moment, but they certainly know that the gauntlet has been laid down.
Also keep an eye on the number 69, Roberto Franco, in the Volkswagen Super Polo, which has been quite consistent. The fan favorite of all the cars has to be the Alfa 33.
Yeah.
That's going around the Alfa Giulia that the team have been working quite hard on. That is the 113, however, into the dirt. So that's not how you're going to get your banker lap in.
Yeah. Banker, no. No. Beached, possibly. Possibly beached. When you are on the coast, you should resist the temptation to bring the beach to the circuit. But we're looking at a number of competitors, of course. We haven't yet gotten them all in frame. We've got the combined racing Honda Civic there. That type are always beautiful to see out on your circuits. And that was Loureiro in the car at the moment. Hirsch behind him in terms of the standing. Loureiro is on a 127.8, and that is him, the 33 Alpha, as well as Hirsch in and around that mark, in the 127 mark. Hirsch is a 10th off, but Fonk and Loureiro seem to be roughly in the same performance bracket, at least as far as things stand. Remy Giga in the 113, the gentleman we saw getting the car a bit out of shape, should be back onto the circuit now. The time is telling, of course. He's probably trying to get another lap and get another go. He's about to refresh the time on screen at the moment as he goes down across the home. The start finish straight for him to get a decent lap in now with a clean start. In his tow is actually Loureiro, he who sits 9th at the moment in the standings, and we're waiting for Alvarez, number 88 Alteza, to also set a benchmark time. There is Bottom Pretorius, head of this mixed class field of qualifiers in Group B at the moment. With that, now is a 123.2 at the moment, and McLaughlin has already beat that now. No longer the benchmark holder is Bottom Pretorius. McLaughlin sits with a 122.7.
So close to the 120-minute mark, and that's the separation for it. But the Pesty Racing team, defending champions, now looking to make it all happen again. Back at Killarney, they were going through the gearbox and just making sure everything's A-OK. Now pulling into the pits. So they're calling it quits for Bottom Pretorius. Be handing over to Bottom Pretorius in the next session. Thumbs up, however, going out to the drivers as they get so close to the Killarney pit wall.
And I'm sure you saw the Graphics Supply World Cup because that is the Graphics Supply World. Roberto Franco cheering on David, who is in the car at the moment in that Class C Polo. So he continues to push, and it seems like David is quite happy with the times that he's putting at the moment.
Once again, you don't want to be the driver that puts in the slowest time.
No.
It's all about the aggregate. So you each put in your fastest lap time. So driver 1 puts in his fastest lap time, driver 2 puts in his fastest lap time, driver 3 puts in his fastest lap time. Then you take those lap times, combine it all together, divide by the amount of drivers, and take it back. So let's take a quick replay, and this is McLaughlin getting a little bit out of shape. Ran a little bit high.
Cape Town corner. Give an idea of just how banked that is. Look how the elevation change going off the circuit and getting back onto it while trying to keep the car as stable as possible. Very, very tricky in a very short space of time. You really have to have your wits about you going out at Cape Town corner.
Going and bottoming out the vehicle as well, as we do see the 33 going and getting a little bit sideways with the likes of Fonk behind the wheel, trying to really push the boundaries. And drivers will have to just feather the throttle through, especially through the double right-hander here, before you get down onto the main straight, or the back straight, and just giving it everything you got. Once again, fastest straight here in Cape Town, and stand to be corrected, second fastest coastal straight you're ever going to go down other than East London. So KILLARNEY showing it off, a very tight line heading into the final corner.
Yes, very interesting choice of line there. We've got number 31 of Gavin Rook. That's the brown deck, yes, brown deck 31, unmistakable livery, having gone off there and having to recover the vehicle, but neatly recovered back out, and that was at turn 1 even. So now going down these straights and getting it prepared for that dip, tuck in of the nose there, to having to go wide, which is a compromised line already. Let's see what happened there. He was trailing Franco, had set a decent 1:20, and that's where it is. There was a lock up there, and turn he might have tried, straight on he went. So he had to then get the car back running again and rejoin turn 1 in the not so desired fashion without interrupting. I think it is Mike McLaughlin who is full steam ahead at turn 1 there, completing left-hander.
It's absolutely grand to see the drivers pushing a little bit harder, but maybe pushing a little too hard, going and hurting those tires. And they're going to be handing that same car over to their family, to the friends and to the drivers, making sure that things are going to work out. And that's where it comes in. If I go and cause flat spots on the tires, hand it over to you, your time is bad, you're definitely going to blame me. It makes it puts a little bit less of a comfortable time. You're going to have to deal with that for 6 hours come tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you better be as close as family then if we're going to be taking on each other's burdens for 6 hours straight. I'd imagine that goes a lot smoother, of course, with all of the competitors, but more especially, I suppose, in the case of, for example, you've got the Alvarez family with the Alteza car. You've got the Rorero family with that Honda Civic, that Type R, and we've also got Bottom Pretorius, of course, and Aram in a family-run team there. So a lot of camaraderie and unquestionable commitment to getting ahead and competing. Speaking of getting ahead, Team Kobani moving ahead, a highest fourth place finisher since the establishment of this championship. Highest fourth place so far. So since then they put their names up there as being a team to watch out for given a chance. Things haven't quite gone as well over the past couple of years, but they are there and thereabouts at times. You can see the pace is there. I'm having to find the right driver combination at times. And this time around, we've got Figile Ulumisa as well as Tolela Njumbuta, but Figile is in the car at the moment. And now he is in the tow of Gavin Rook. Let's see what they make of it at Cape Town corner.
And this is actually quite a useful tactic, especially down that long straight, allowing Gavin Rook to open up a bit of a slipstream to blow through. But Gavin Rook had a fantastic entry into the final corner. This is going to give him a run down to the straight and possibly able to jump up.
And I got to beg your pardon there, Steve, because the Ulumisa number 11 Kobani car is blue on one side and gray on the other. While we see the checkered flag coming down, Team Kobani was actually trailing Dan Hirsch in the number 42. But in the meantime, that is checkered flag for this qualifying group, and we're going to see the changeover again going back into Group A. All right, best attempt given a couple of minutes, roughly 10 minutes given to each of these competitors to see how they fare with the challenge of the KILLARNEY International Raceway. that certainly does whet your appetite. If it does not, we've got plenty more. So be patient. It's coming your way. Not only do we have an array of vehicles and equipment on offer for you this weekend, we also have an array of talent. For example, the likes of Gary Fleming.
I don't know about talent, but hello everybody and welcome to KILLARNEY International.
Yeah.
Once a year we get this in fact the last time we had this opportunity for SA Endurance Series was in 2022.
Yeah.
And it drew massive amounts of people. But the fact that we've got the live TV coverage is fantastic.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure a lot of the Cape Townians are going to appreciate a familiar voice saying welcome to the SAES. It's round 3 and we've just begun. Fun has only just begun and we're getting the third of the many qualifying sessions that we have underway. We're splitting it into 2 groups according to the pace that the cars are able to achieve. The Group A is determined by the ability to be under the benchmark time of 1 minute 20, while Group B is over that time. So that's the sort of line dividing in terms of performance. But as it stands with Group B, we saw a 1 minute 20. 1 minute 20.2 from Roberto Franco from David Franco. Roberto now will enter the car, but David Franco was in the VW, the GSW VW Polo. And we've got Fonk as well, who was in that number 33 Scuderia Rossi Alpha. He said a 122. Mike McLaughlin in the number 72 backdraft, which is called a super backdraft, entering in Class A. Despite its performance capability, they are a Class A competitor originally, once their equipment is back to full trim. Then we've got Loureiro, of course, with a 122.8. So all of the teammates are now stepping into their cars. So Roberto is now in the car. And we've also got Mike in the car. Steve just stepped out. Paolo's in the car for number 37 of Combined Racing. Stewie will also be in the car for the Group A competitors, which are getting on now. So we're going back to the other side of the benchmark, where we're sub 120. So the quicker cars of the groups are back in, and we're seeing driver 2 for each of those teams. So once your timing screen, if you're keeping up with us on your timing screen, it's going to reset in a bit. The transponders are going to refresh and you'll see different names. Do not be alarmed. We have now the switch over to the quicker of the cars and the switch over to slightly darker conditions.
Well, keep in mind that the cameras that are in use is pretty much top quality cameras, and
Yes.
it's giving you a whole bunch more light than what there is actually out there.
Exactly.
Given the hour, given the time of the year down here at KILLARNEY International Raceway, it's a whole bunch darker than what you can see out there.
Yep.
Hence, you see the cars with their lights on, as you see the Lamborghini on its way down the KILLARNEY back main. And it's not completely straight. There's a bit of a curve in there going down into Cape Town Corner, turn 5. And that is that beautiful Lamborghini Hurricane GT3 Evo 2 that is out there. And as Stephen was saying earlier on, the air duct at the top of the roof going down towards the motor is the easiest way to determine between the older and the newer of the Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
That being a car that's just recently being imported into the country, and they still haven't got the best out of it. It can still do better than what they're doing. They're learning the nuances of that motor car.
Incredible. Shakedown weekend. It might take a couple of races even. But what I can say is distinct about the two renditions of this beautiful piece of machinery is the fact that there's down the home straight, there's a slight whistle that you hear that is different to the previous its predecessor. I don't know if it's maybe an aerodynamic feature that comes, or a circumstance or a result of the slightly different aerodynamic profile because of that scoop and vent over the top of the car. But it certainly sounds different down the straight, as you can hear air moving slightly differently around this particular car.
It just makes you realize how much the aerodynamics actually plays into it, that above the roar of the exhaust and the road sound, you can actually hear a variation in the sound of the wind as it travels over, and some of it underneath the car as they come across the line to complete a lap under the City of Cape Town Bridge.
Yeah, indeed. Keen observation there about the fact that the cameras are doing an incredible job to show us a bit more than the naked eye would be able to see. That tells you the odds or the elements are already stacked up against the racing drivers, and they're going to have to sharpen up that much more for them to put down respectable quality times going into the rest of this session. For Group A, the quicker of the racing drivers we've seen thus far.
Notice how stiff the suspension is
Yes.
on that Lamborghini.
Yeah.
If you take normal saloon car racing at Killarney International, you wouldn't see a car bounce around as much as that. You would tend to say, well, the circuit's pretty smooth. But
Yeah.
when you've got so much downforce and a stiffer ride height, lower and stiffer ride height, that's when you see the car bouncing around. We saw a lot of that with that Lamborghini going down into turn number 2 under the braking markers.
Yeah.
It's almost like somebody rolled up the tar.
Yeah. And I will say with that Lambo, we haven't seen it bounce quite yet. When Stewie White is going to be taking that thing in anger, trying to make up for possible lost time, you'll see just how much a car can bounce around with a stiff suspension.
Stewie White, one of South Africa's best up until recently, held the fastest lap times. There you see him coming there in the background now with that Lambo. And up until recently, he had the fastest laps ever recorded at 4 of the main circuits around South Africa. Only recently now that it was, I think it was about 0.2 of a second, was the 106, about 106.7, somewhere around there. And that was by Troy Dolenchik. So Stewie White knows his way around Killarney International, and he can be very, very consistent. With the international career that he's had, he's accustomed to going to circuits and learning them quickly. So coming to his hometown, it's just a case of make it a smooth. Oops,
Lock up the
That's
Hinton House,
Hinton House,
yes.
Father-son combination.
Yeah.
Ollie the son, I think, is probably the man that is in that vehicle right now.
It is not Ollie, actually. It's his dad is in the car at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get a reset of the transponder.
Yeah, and yeah, the Hinternaus father-son combination. Nice to have them out there on circuit as well. Always nice to see a family racing together.
Absolutely, and I just saw one of the cars peeling into the pits, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get a proper picture of that for a bit later, but in the meantime, we've got Wayne Roach and that number 95 Gallardo going around the circuit. This is a Class B defending champion, mind you, in the frame of Wayne Roach. The year hasn't started too great for Samlin Racing when it comes to not only Wayne Roach, but I beg your pardon, Damien Hammond. When it came to Swartkorps, I mean, you can see just the disappointment in how a couple of things didn't quite go the team's way and the way they desired to start the season. But we put that behind us, and you can tell that such high spirits and such a great mood it is just to walk around the Samlin Racing pits. And knowing that you're defending champions, you're going to always want to bring your best going into this. And from defending champions to possible champion challenges, can we call it? We've got the Novo Proto 2 there, getting its way around. Rico Baller Racing, beautiful looking car. Initially I thought it was the Rico Baller Racing car that actually peeled into the pits when I saw it in frame, but
it did look like it.
Did
Unless
look like
they just went in and went straight out the other side. The 95 car you see there on screen, as we said, that was Wayne Roach. And that's the Lamborghini Gallardo Super Trofeo. It sort of sounds fast. Super Trofeo. Beautiful looking motor car as he gets the hammer down and up the front main, and we'll see those times starting to come through now. So far, Stewie White the fastest on a 107.227. That is blindingly quick.
Incredible.
That is literally half a second off the fastest lap times ever around Killarney International Raceway. So that is beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and you look at the consistency as well. He's able to play in and around that 107 mark quite comfortably. He set about three laps or so in and around that benchmark, and the 107.2 being the best of them. So it really is about building up a good 3-4 laps before he's setting that solid lap time.
Keeping in mind that we're sitting with around about 12 degrees Celsius at the moment now, so obviously your track temperatures are very low. It'll take a bit of time to get the temperatures in there. But it's not all plain sailing, because Arnie Neervelen is right in there as well. He's just 6/10 off.
He is.
Just 6/10. That is nothing in a minute and a half. 6/10.
An interesting observation here. Wayne Roach doesn't yet have his lights on. So maybe an indication of his ability to see in the conditions at the moment. Because the majority of competitors I've seen so far, in this particular Group A that is, have their lights on already. But maybe he's going to change that not too long from now.
But keep in mind there is compulsory night practice after the qualifying.
Yes.
And yeah, with the sun going down pretty early this time of the year at Killarney International, as we watch the 27 car completing yet another lap. We'll see what kind of times we're getting there.
Yeah,
that's Franco De Matteo, Julian from the Yaris, and Romano Sartori. That is the new Ford Mustang. And I must say, Franco De Matteo, had a chat with him earlier on. He was very impressed with the car. He says that car, yeah, in the pits there already. That's nice. Shot from the drone. But Franco was saying massive amounts of power. And that thing would do around about the 260 mark down Killarney back straight. So if the rain comes down, well, when the rain comes down, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the bigger names with the faster cars out on circuit, how do they handle those conditions? Not too much wind. We're accustomed to having a southeaster which would blow. You'd be, as you see that shot there, that's the Killarney back main, and the wind would be coming from the front. But look at the trees on the left-hand side. That's about 15 kilometers an hour wind, which is not much for Cape Town.
Wow, that is incredible. So we're only just getting started in terms of either head or tailwind at the moment. We'll see just how our racing drivers navigate that, because with a tailwind you're looking at having to brake a bit earlier because of the force, and with a headwind you have to brake a bit later because that's now forcing the car a bit backwards. So you're trying to mitigate that challenge. Now looking at the Hintenau's car now.
He's just come past us now. That's him on screen that you can see there.
Yep.
That's Albert Hintenaus, the father of Oliver Hintenaus.
Yeah, Albert with a 1:15.6. He's going to start another lap now and trying to beat that possibly nicely down the center there around the left-hander at turn 1. Then there's that little dip going down into turn 2, goes as wide as possible, just on the brink of touching some of the excess and the runoff there, and meets the curb in the apex quite well, going out now down into the kink. And I wonder if there's a slight tap there going off out of the kink, but down into turn 3 goes, and then now approaching the double right, and the car looks slammed. You can hardly see the distance between the bottom of the car and the tarmac. Just shows you that aerodynamic profile and built just to slice through the air as efficiently as possible as he makes his way down the home straight. And you get a picture of what it looks like now, taking on what is a headwind, if I can tell by the direction of the trees and the way they're blowing, and the, of course, famous Cape Town corner where he's now corrected what was an error a lap or so before, and getting on the exit nicely and getting a decent drive and slamming it once more down the home straight.
Trying to get a little bit quicker than that 1:15.6. I see the checkered flag coming out, so that'll be the last time across the line. A 1:15.6 now becomes a 1:15.313.
There we go.
Fifth fastest
there we go.
In this one, and that just behind Julian Familiaris. Julian Familiaris teamed up there with Franco De Matteo and Romano Sartori, who's the owner of the Ford Mustang IRC. And as I said, they were very excited to ride with that motor car.
Romano Sartori, cool as a cucumber, cool as cat
so
on
calm.
the circuit.
He was standing there asking for hamburgers and chips and whatever, and started chatting to me. And Franco Matteo is just sitting there quite relaxed, like he's not going to be doing the better part of 260 kilometers an hour in a couple of minutes' time, and just all calm and relaxed in his lounge.
Yeah, 100%. The most friendly individuals you'll come across on a paddock, and absolutely a pleasure to see just how much they enjoy being here. Speaking about their car, I mean, you can literally, it still has new car smell. It still has new car. That's how fresh this car is, and it's being shaken down on South African racing circuits.
And shaken up on Killarney, if we have a look at that. But there you can see how the light levels have changed. If you look at the exact same camera shot. Okay, obviously the headlights are set slightly differently, but they're coming through turn 5, Cape Town corner. Our local man is working his way back towards the pit area.
So can you imagine that glare coming into your rear view mirror, and at times profuse flashing to go with it for you to get out of the way? I am quicker than you. And while also not missing your braking marker, and also trying to navigate your own competitors. And now I'm just thinking from the perspective of the back markers as we see the drone shots and seeing the setup of the Inter-Africa racing. They're getting ready for the closing stages of quali, and the team, of course, trying to steady the car and reel it into the pit. You can see they have a chance possibly again for us to have a go again. We've still got a bit of lights. It's not, I guess, again, the ability of our cameras.
Beautiful cameras.
Yeah, it might belie the truth. But as it stands, we've set a couple of benchmarks for both Group A and B, and the benchmark having been sub 1 minute 20. And Group A, of course, have had their say again, and we're going to see another go with the Group B competitors. You can hear the burble, unmistakable burble of a group of Lexus V8s, to name a few classes that are part of this Group B qualifying segment.
Well, there we go. Driver number 2, group number B, going out on circuit. There's one lone Honda out there as well.
Yeah.
That's the 37 car as he
Yeah.
works his way around.
Yeah,
And
Loureiro.
that is Paolo and Ricardo Loureiro.
Yeah.
And that's Honda Type R. And you can hear it if you turn your back to the circuit and these backdraft vehicles come towards you, and you get this completely different sound. It'd be Honda.
Yeah, completely different sound, completely different look as well. A signature look there, a very unique livery that I've always enjoyed seeing out onto the circuit. One of the favorites, let's say, personal favorites over the years that I've seen. I think it's something about red on a car that just brings it alive.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
I must say that having had a chance to walk through the pits and having a look at the SA Endurance Series 2025 entries, the average quality of the vehicle in terms of looks-wise, everybody seems to have stepped it up for 2025,
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
and a lot of the cars having full wrap jobs done on them and looking utterly immaculate as the first of the cars comes through to start with a flying lap.
100%. Another of the cars that I've enjoyed seeing, the number 31 of Brown Deck with Gavin Rook as well as Richard van Heerden. Beautiful luminescent green/yellow there. Unmistakable to see them out on the circuit for the V8 Roadster class. And there is one of those V8 Roadsters going a bit questionable off the circuit. Gonna have to recover there and get things neat once again. And that is not the first time we see that with a V8 Roadster. The last of the V8 Roadster to do that is actually Gavin Rook when he was inside the Brown Deck number 31. So I wonder what the issue is at that particular part of the circuit for that particular car. Maybe a runoff situation, because it does get busy at turn 1.
You tend to, if you're a little bit too late on the brakes and you start to rotate the car in towards the left-hand side, you take weight off that left-hand front wheel, and often you see it's the left-hand front where the smoke will start.
Yes.
That's because that wheel has been unloaded as you're rotating the car coming into turn number 1. And there he gets it back out on circuit again. So that's all some lovely replays that we're getting through here.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, if the rain comes down, those replays, I think, is going to bring you lots of good footage as to what's actually happening out there on
100%.
circuit.
So much can happen on the circuit. They have to have eyes everywhere. But Denver Brandes is going to hope to have his eyes everywhere as he tries not to miss every bit of traction available to him on the circuit. He, of course, is in that number 127 V8 Roadster, but he's back out onto the circuit as we speak. In the meantime, Steve Clark is going to go back in that number 72. Just came in and out of frame there, setting a benchmark of 123.5 as it stands. Garcia, close but relatively close second with 124.9. There's quite a gap in that department. Perhaps he's able to mitigate that as the session goes by. Of course, they are on borrowed time as we've got that number 72 in question. Now, beached somewhere. It looks like turn 2.
That's on the exit of turn number 1.
Exit of 1. Yes,
Having
exit
come
of
out
1.
of 1,
Yes,
that
yes.
camera is on the entrance to
There we
turn
go.
number 2. The curbstones on the outside of 1 is not that high, so you will see when it gets really hard and tough
Okay.
that the guys are running a little bit wide coming out of turn number 1.
Yeah.
The grass is fairly level. In general, the guys would keep the hammer down and recover the circuit halfway up towards turn number 2.
Yeah.
That one just spun around a little bit too far, so he couldn't continue that one through there. But a slight undulation as you go out of turn number 1 on the inside of the circuit is a little bit of a drop, and that tends to unsettle the
Of
car.
course,
So
yes.
you've got to be on it if you want to come through there 11/10.
Yeah. It's like suddenly you're shorter at the nose of the car when you wanted all that stability, and that's the exact point when you're turning in and having a steering input. So it must be very difficult to actually stabilize that car rather. And Jumbo completes the double right there, turns 4 and 5, and approaching 5 rather at Cape Town corner. You can see the wind only picking up at the moment. Look how low that car is, to give you an indication of just how much of a dip there will be in change in undulation. see the angle. You have to position the car as ideally as possible. He gets a decent looking exit. Now I wonder if that's going to materialize in terms of lap time. We'll get a picture in the moment in a second or two as we get our transponders resetting. He's coming from a 129.5. That is Njumbotla in the number 11 of Team Kubani. And not too long from now, he's set. Let's see what time he's set now. He started a new lap, so I'm going to refresh the screen there and try and see. In the meantime, Steve Clark still at the top of this particular group, Group B, second drivers with a 123.5.
A man that hails from Great Britain.
Yes, he does. Yes,
Some
he does.
international flavour down in Cape Town.
Pedigrees, international pedigrees. It really is enjoyable to see that. Dan Hirsch, of course, representing the States as well. Neighbor in that V8 Roadster class. And you're getting the perspective of just how attractive a prospect this V8 Roadster national championship is. You're drawing talent from all over the world. But of course, Dan Hirsch, local man based here in Cape Town, so he's certainly enjoying himself racing in his backyard, I'd imagine. He knows a couple of tricks or two that one of his competitors might not if they're coming from outside of the province.
The 127 backdraft of Robin Mordaunt, Mark Gavin Futcher, and Denvin Branders.
Yeah.
Three South Africans sharing that motor car as we keep an eye on the 11 car as he walks his way around Cape Town corner. And
walk is a good word because he looked a bit ginger there outside of Cape Town corner and also went quite wide as compared to the previous line. Maybe he's trying now something a bit different because the exit was wider there.
There's numerous different lines that you can use through Cape Town corner. In general, if you're in traffic, you can sit on the right-hand side and block off that inside line.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time when you come out of Sarwell Sweet Turn 4 and you're on your way down the backbone, if somebody comes up behind you, you will automatically move across to the right-hand side of the circuit.
Yes.
You often get out-braking maneuvers happening into Cape Town corner as we have a look there by turn 2 now, but you often have out-braking maneuvers there where people go for the inside line, it gets blocked, go for the outside, and then the guy that's on the outside will tend to run around the top end of the corner to sort of like the middle of the corner by the apex. Then you drop it down into the dip and straight line in the exit as fast as best as you can to then get another opportunity up the front main, up the Porsche straight, to be able to then pick up that extra speed.
Now, how about that? The first time we've seen the sun today is when it was setting. Over the handful of times we've seen the sun. The sun's about to set here on KILLARNEY International Raceway Circuit, and we've got a group of Group B cars trying to set a benchmark for themselves and raise the average, because we're seeing an average system here when it comes to the qualifying times. We need 3 racing drivers to set 3 lap times, and then those are added up and divided by 3. For example, in the case of some of the V8 Roadster cars, we have 3 racing drivers like the 127, for example, with Denver Branders at the wheel at the moment. We're going to have that car's average split amongst the 3, and that will be determining then their starting position come tomorrow for the SAES 6 hours.
Okay, so
KILLARNEY.
just explaining that one to the folks, how does that work? You've got 3 different drivers. Oops, there we've got the 11 car that's overshot the entry to turn number 1.
Yep.
So if you've got 3 drivers, all 3 go out. They all put up a flying lap. Those 3 times are added together, divided by 3, and that is then your qualifying time for that vehicle. Car driver combinations.
100%. That's exactly it. And it challenges you. If you've got a pair of really quick teammates and you're the third man who's usually a tenth or 2 off, it really makes you wonder where can you find the time, because your teammates are achieving that performance with the exact same car that you're using. I wonder what was going on with Njumbotla there. It seemed he had already decided early on that he was going straight ahead.
You see, you don't want to end up going into the sandpit there and then maybe getting stuck and causing a possible yellow flag as well scenario. So you get to the point where you see, no, I'm not going to make it, as we watch Gavin Rook and Richard van Heerden in the backdrop brown deck car as he works his way around. And now you can see the sun that has already set, and you see the lights now on top of where the numbers are, that being able in the latter part of tonight when we have the evening practice session, which I do believe is compulsory, you can then, because when the lights come towards you, you see nothing.
Yeah.
You've got to, as you see the 262 now coming past us, you can see how the lights are shining onto the number of the motor car, and then you know exactly who it is, and that in fact is Barent and Harum Pretorius in the backdraft Roadster.
Yeah, and Sun saying, okay, I'm done for the day. Then the brown deck car is going to take over. It's an extremely bright car, so we might do with an extra source of light going into sunset conditions. As we hear the Alteza, number 88 Alteza going down the home straight, might be visible and in frame. I think that is under braking. I wonder who's in the car at the moment. We'll get a reset of the transponder a lap or so from now. As the number 31 brown deck also follows down the middle of turn 1 there. Looks ginger, not as fast. Doesn't look like a hot one there.
No, I think they've already got the checkered flag, as we see the 55 car going down towards the checkered flag. So I think those cars that are in shot have already completed their flying laps as such.
Oh, awesome. And that is the close of the session for Group B. And as there you go, every time we get that drone shot, we get a shade or two darker over the circuit.
You realize every time you get a shot from the drone's a little bit closer because it can't see where it's going anymore. So it's not going as high as what it was. What a beautiful shot of Killarney International Raceway. 77 years of history right here at Killarney International Raceway. And honor and pleasure to have the SA Endurance Series. The last time they were here was 2022. And the SA Endurance Series back here at Killarney International for 6 hours of action. It's going to be starting at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Indeed, come 2 o'clock. We may be looking at a different circuit entirely, some would argue. The certainty in Gavin Fleming's voice, I guess, gives me confidence to walk around knowing that I won't have any touchwood duties. And if anything goes in that direction, blame it on Gary.
All else fails, read the manual. Don't believe what you see in the newspaper.
Exactly.
As the guys work their way back into the pits, you see the wind is starting to come up a little bit more, and that'll be anything up to 20 kilometers an hour right now. All predictions originally was for around about 25 millimeters of rain during the whole course of Saturday as such. Recent predictions are showing anything up to 40 millimeters of rain during the course of tomorrow. But if you go to 5 different weather stations, you get 5 different results. Let it suffice to say there's a lot of wet weather tires standing around in the pits, good to go.
Indeed, 5 different weather results is exactly what I've been hearing.
Yeah, no, it's very, very varied.
Yep,
but
varied.
All signs are such that it looks like we're going to have a fair amount of rain tomorrow, which for us, the commentators, and for you guys at home, the viewers, is awesome, because keep in mind that when the clock starts at 2 o'clock and it stops at 8 o'clock, should there be heavy downpours, should there be rivers of water across the circuit, should visibility be bad, they don't stop the clock. The clock starts and it stops.
100%.
That's it. You might have a half a lap lead on somebody. The safety car comes out.
Yep.
They do an assessment. They take 2-3 laps. They say, no, bring the cars into the pits. And all of a sudden, that gap, which you've got 35, 40 seconds, is negated completely on the restart. So don't think just because you've got a 3/4 of a lap gap that it's done and dusted, because it just takes one safety car. And then if you get taken into the pits and you get held for a period of time, you may not work on the motor car. So it's not a case of, oh, let's put on fresh rubber and let's get this one sorted. No, it doesn't happen like that. You go out in the same format that you came into the pits.
100%.
So it can be turned upside down by Mother Nature very, very easily.
Yeah, and that return to the pits to make the actual change you would have loved to make under park for make conditions must be so frustrating, because you know just how much time you've compromised.
You don't get a lucky Max Verstappen free pass to get a cheap stop there. But yeah, it's definitely getting a whole bunch darker, a whole lot colder, which will also affect the ability of the tires to last. It'll also affect in terms of braking, that the brakes will be kept a lot cooler, so it will lower the brake wear patterns as well. But then again, when the rain comes down and you put on these, 265 30 or 35 18-inch tires, I actually felt some of the tires. I walked down the pit lane earlier on, and there was the normal slick tires that was standing there in a pile. 4 of them next to one another. They're so wide, they're almost my height, which is a little bit over 5 feet.
That is not an exaggeration.
You can actually feel the difference in the compound between the slick tires and the soft tires. So there is no doubt that those tires, they expected to have less temperature, so it will get much less heat up and softening of the rubber, hence that rubber which is so much softer on those wet weather tires.
And knowing the circuit as well as you do, Gary, what do you say on surface, the abrasion of the tire here? What kind of effect are we seeing there on the tires?
Not as much as Aldous Scribante. Aldous Scribante is a very abrasive circuit.
Okay.
I would call East London Grand Prix circuit and Swartkorps and Killarney pretty similar. There are numerous areas of the Killarney track that has been resurfaced in the not too distant past. It's not a green circuit as it is at the moment. We've had racing here recently now, but once the rain comes down, the conditions are going to change. Having said that, all your setups that has been done since the first practices sessions that's been available yesterday, there's a nice Marshall doing a long run. All that practicing has been done in warmer conditions than what we've got now and in total dry conditions. None of the people here today, right now, have had a chance to take whatever vehicle they've got you out on the circuit in a wet format. That is going to be the learning curve. That is where the experience comes in of the guys that have been here in previous years with same and or similar motor cars. Not a nice time to have a breakdown.
No, that's how you want to lean against your car generally when you know you're in the coast.
When you're in the pits and somebody wants to interview you, but not when you're on the track.
No, not at all. So Denver Branders will hope that the worst will be quickly found and dealt with when it comes to their number 127 V8 Roadster. So Marshall's quick and at the ready to recover the car. And once that's done, we can continue with the program for the day. We're getting ready for that night practice as well. So that's you would love a scenario where you want to be prepared for anything that could come your way, come a race weekend. Like in this instance, for example, where we have 16 million different possible conditions of going into Saturday's race. You can practice, have a night practice, that's fine. Practice in the dry, that's great, during the day and night. However, you can't simulate. You can't have someone with a sprinkler out the side of the circuit.
You cannot simulate the rain.
Exactly.
And a lot of the people that are racing here this weekend are not necessarily from Cape Town. There's a large contingency from up north. So knowing the local conditions and the adaptation from a dry Killarney to a damp Killarney to a wet Killarney to a very heavy rainpour Killarney to determine how much your retardation under braking varies. It's very, very difficult, and that's where the experienced people that have been racing for a long time in this series, who've been racing overseas, that go to a lot of different circuits, that's where their ability to adapt to those changing conditions. Remember, you can go out tomorrow and it's dry. Then somebody else goes out in the car. Now it's your chance to go. You're two drivers, so 45 minutes later you climb in the car and you go out in pouring rain. Where's your brake markers now? You're about to find out.
100%. You're about to create a braking marker for someone else, more so than yourself, really. Because copying people's homework is your best friend when it comes to a scenario like that. And maybe we can delve into this conversation a bit more, because it's interesting that when you tally it up over the course of a year, let's say a racing driver that tours Europe and the world, GT3 racing driver, for example, who has the benefits and blessing to be racing alongside gentlemen racing drivers, they don't necessarily get a lot of seat time in whether it's practice, quali, or actually racing. They don't.
The higher you go towards the top end of the scales, the more it becomes endurance type racing, where there are numerous drivers in one motor car. And you can go to a track, you can go and do all the practice sessions, you can go do your qualifying and everything. You got two drivers in the car before you, and before you get a chance to ride, it's all over. Let's go to the next circuit because the car's broken. So you don't get that much seat time. That's where the likes of, for instance, Tate Bishop, that's been overseas recently, now in fact just last weekend, that gets to drive a lot of different cars on a lot of different circuits. That's where the adaptability comes into it immediately as the circuit changes lap for lap.
Yep, and you definitely need your skills and your wits about you, and on instant demand you need it. Okay, look, Denver Branders getting hands-on there. He knows exactly what to do. Of course, this won't be an entirely new situation, as would be the case with any gearhead or petrolhead. But Denver Branders, one of our competitors coming from Durban, of course, so not unfamiliar with the coast, but perhaps has to acclimatize a bit to the temperatures of this particular coast as compared to the Indian Ocean up in Durban.
Speaking of which, this being round number 3,
Yeah.
from here on out, the circuits you're going to?
From here, well, after this, we're going to a, let's call it a preview of our heavy hitter, our headline event, the SAES 9 Hours of Kyalami. We're going to a half distance of that going into Kyalami, and it's going to be very exciting going into round 4 to see how the racing drivers perhaps have learned from the mistakes last year or added on to the improvements that they were able to find going into this particular race. And we've also got added incentives when it comes to the overall picture, which obviously you want to compete at the end of the year for the SAES 9 Hours of Kyalami. So you've got changing up of the fact that, for example, you need to be part of each and every round for you to be there for the big one. So the competitiveness is there, the eagerness for everyone to be there is there. And also when it comes to the particular race itself, you have to complete half distance and get a quarter of the available points for each race that you compete in.
Just explain that to the viewers in terms of at what point during a race is points allocated, because obviously in endurance racing, often you don't get to the end.
100%.
So how is the points different the way it's allocated in an endurance series like South African endurance racing as opposed to a normal race?
Yeah, so you've of course got the fact, now the new fact that we've added here is the fact that once you've gone across halfway distance of this race, you get a quarter of the points available. Now, the fact that you've entered the factor of endurance racing and not always being able to complete the race, that then gives some sort of benefit to entrants who may not have been able to make it, say, a third and some or 2/3 and some distance across the race.
You've got some return on investment.
You've got some return if you could not make that 75% to actually get you the full points available for the position you will finish in. So this then gives you a bit of a cushion to land on in terms of points for your competing and being able to cross that halfway mark. But also, it changes your aggression in terms of you're competitive a lot earlier on, because you're now racing to the halfway mark of effectively you are racing to be ahead at the halfway mark, just in case of, well, whatever happens, whether it happens to you or someone else. So that it twists the dynamic in a positive direction, I would say, in terms of competitiveness overall.
Taking away the all or nothing at the end of the day point scenario does even out the log and make it a slightly different approach that you have to take. A different approach for endurance events as opposed to sprint events.
100%, 100%. Certainly unique. And another unique factor we can say is the Index of Performance Championship. How the fact that, again, we spoke about the averaging of qualifying times and how that's divvied up across for the team for that to be fair in terms of where they start on the grid. We also have an averaging of the pace and the difference in disparity between how quick or slow racing drivers are in and amongst themselves in that particular car. The closer they are together in terms of the pace they're able to accomplish, then the higher up they score points when it comes to the end of that particular race and division. So you'll see, for example, in the Index of Performance class, everyone is in that same championship. So you can find Class D cars being ahead of Class A cars because the Class D racing drivers are closer in terms of their lap time.
Much more consistent.
Exactly. Much more consistent.
And keep in mind that it's not a team championship, it's an individual
100%.
driver championship.
100%.
So you can be 2 people on a car, you can be 3 people on the car, or like the Nova MP2 of Nick Adcock, you can be 4 drivers, but each of those drivers will score points in their own personal capacity for any single event that they go out there. So yes, it's a team effort, but it's not only a team effort, as Damon Hammond takes the Limolli Lamborghini Hurricane Super Trofeo Evo around the circuit.
100%. He's definitely going to be eager to get things going for this segment of the day's quali and getting ready for the race weekend ahead of us.
Now it's getting dark.
Yeah, now it is dark now. So it's past the point where we're sort of being conservative about our assessment of the track. Right now, it's full-on commitment into a pseudo-night racing, let's call it. There we go. We have the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2, and I believe the Nova Proto 2 as well. No, not yet with the lights on. Momia out on the circuit as well. And that's 786 Porsche 991.2. Sun Moodley also in the frame there, making way for Damien Hammond. And there goes the flash of the red lights with number 57, Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo. yeah, we're certainly in the darker segment of the racing. See the glare of the lights just got so much more emphasized with all the racing cars. We've also got the GNH Transport Audi R8 out on the circuit as well, approaching turn 1.
Son Moodley out there as well.
Yep.
Nice to see him out there. Man, that's got a massive heritage in motorsport as well.
Now, beg your pardon, that wasn't the Nova Proto 2. It has the same glare in terms of the luminescent part of the livery. That is, if I'm not mistaken, the 128 Ligier. I'm going to have a look who exactly is in now to get the transponders out. Now, I beg your pardon, because now the lights has made it a bit more difficult to see exactly who's there. So work with us as we navigate the elements together.
Look how close that was.
Yeah, incredibly close.
Everybody trying to get a little bit of open ground in and around themselves so that they can get a decent lap time in. So it's not one car out at a time, it's everybody together.
Yeah.
So you think it's only Formula One that have problems in qualifying? You can get blocked in this as well.
And someone who does not want to get blocked. We saw Olele Tlaka in that Lamborghini of Inter Africa Racing. We saw Stewie White, but at the moment it is Axel Jeffries of international pedigree in that GT3.
The GT3 cars worldwide is 108.7. Axel Jeffries says good morning to Mr. Charles Ranges. Has done a 1 minute 10.77.
Yeah.
Jonathan Thomas on a 1:10.8. That is our 3 fastest out there right now. See, Franco Di Matteo, he's finding himself a little bit further down than I think he would have expected to be. He's down in 6th position provisionally. They are now on lap number 2 as the 28 of Jean-Pierre Stander this year. That's a 2015 model JSP2 that he's campaigning for this year. Oh, there we go.
Look at that.
Hotel car. I wonder which of the Adcock team is out there at the moment.
It's Jono Thomas.
So Jonathan Thomas, one of the quickest in that motor. Jonathan Thomas with Nick Adcock, Louis Maurice and Michael Stephen, the Michael Stephen, for the last 2.5 decades in South African motorsport.
A lot of heavy hitters and names. The lap record holder, of course, is Jono Thomas, and it's definitely. You can imagine to a certain extent just how intense it is, the pressure, the sense of pressure that you have in a team that has so much talent at its disposal. We've seen a number of competitors. We've seen likes of Charles Visser get into that Nova Proto 2. We've seen Ryan Nyker get into that Nova Proto 2, and all of them are quick. Each and every one of them are. And today we have, as ever, 2 of the quickest racing drivers on South African and international shores. So in the meantime, JP Stander now getting around the turn 1. He's got San Moodley in tow. He's also got Janakaro, as Ricky Janakaro in the Audi R8 at the moment. Glare is getting worse and worse. Tells you getting darker and darker, and San Moodley may make way not too long from now, because Janakaro seems okay. He's backed off a bit. Janakaro pulling a bit back now. They seem a lot closer. And I wonder what's going on with Axel Jeffries as well, because he also comes in and out of frame. Behind these 2 cars we have now, there's Axel Jeffries. He's going to have to slice past Janakaro, as well as, also, I beg your pardon, San Moodley first out the way, then it's JP Stander next. For him to get Stander going a bit narrow. Of course, you would at the double right. It's a very difficult place to go down the inside.
Everybody's flat foot going through there. Axel enters turn 4, solid sweep at a pace that he has to actually touch the brake pedal before the second part of the apex. He waited till he got to the back straight and worked his way past the 28 car. So he's now in good stead. Axel Jeffries, the fastest man so far, with 5 minutes 38 gone on a 107.768. Will he get any quicker? Not impossible. Keep in mind that Charles Ranges is on a 109.3, so there is a reasonable difference between the 2 of them.
Indeed, a reasonable difference with the array of cars as well.
That Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo, what a beautiful looking and sounding motor car in the hands of Ranges. And they've had that car out on circuit for quite a long time already. It's done a lot of racing kilometers. As we see the 311 working its way down towards the start-finish line to do another lap. That's Andrew Horn in the Ligier.
That's Antoine Marks we see in the tow of Axel Jeffries at the moment. And Jeffries doesn't seem to have disposed of Antoine Marks as easily as you might think, given the fact that he's the fastest man on circuit. And 20 marks at the moment in the 121 mark, but of course different classes and different questions asked of the car around this beautiful KILLARNEY International Raceway.
That's getting dark.
And now it's reading what the car's doing also changes.
Keep in mind, the guys that went out to do quali earlier on have not had a chance to ride in the dark. Next time they climb into the motor car, you're going to have a completely different scenario. Not only is it colder, the humidity would have gone up, and your vision would have then changed as well. Well, a little bit closer. Charles Arrangi's on a 108.479, so the gap is closing between them. At this stage of the fight, there is about 0.6 of a second between Axel Jeffries and Charles Arrangi's.
Oh my word! We're seeing the glow of brake discs and exhaust.
Love it.
Oh my word!
Got to love it.
I could not contain myself. I beg your pardon, Gary Fleming. Please complete your thoughts.
I'm just also
as
looking at...
gobsmacked as me.
It's the first time that we actually see the one car, the Lamborghini Hurricane, as he works his way around. Axel Jeffries, the man from Great Britain, putting up his time. We've had Zolile Ledlaka in the car. We've had Stewie White, the man that's driven for Lamborghini worldwide already. And it's so nice to have Stewie around. And whenever you see him, he's also like Franco Di Matteo, calm and collected, and you'd never say he's just got out of a motor car that's been traveling subsonic speeds around a circuit.
Yeah, no. Stewie White, his demeanor is, I don't know, the most impressive running gambit at the moment on racing paddocks, because when you walk up to him, you'd swear he's doing something else other than racing a car in anger. But just wait until the lights go off tomorrow when they put these cars in full race trim, and he's trying to slice and dice his way across the grid of a mix of classes, 5 classes in total, of course, that have come together to make this racing weekend happen.
Well, look at those overall times. Axel Jeffries with the lead car, obviously his teammates being Stewie White and Zolile Ledlaka. Charles Arrangi's in the 86, and he has got with him Bradley Liebenberg, who's done some amazing stuff in other classes in South Africa, and then the highly acclaimed Arnold Neerfelin, who, to my mind, made his name really in terms of Polo Cup. That's where I got to know the name Arnold Neerfelin as a household name. Nice to see Franco Matteo in the Mustang. Him and his guys up there in a 5th position, and Mo Mears also had a pretty good run, leading out a batch of cars in the 116s and the 117s, with Marius Jackson in 7th overall, with Ricky Giancarlo just ahead of Sun Moodley in the Porsche.
Indeed, Janakro might want to change that not too long from now, but it's going to be tough. It's a second between himself and Jackson in that number 81 Porsche 992. Let's have a look and see. And the braking looks very impressive from a distance. This, we haven't quite seen this particular angle going into the banking of Cape Town corner, but we've got the checkered flag that's come, and that is the end of it for this particular crop of racing drivers that now have to make way for the next batch of competitors. We're going to be averaging things out not too long from now. There is Brad Liebenberg. Brad Liebenberg in the car at the moment, is that correct?
I do believe so, yes.
Yeah, that is Brad Liebenberg in the car as it stands. Also, another very relaxed character that might throw you off, if you meet him and think that he does something your average human might do. He's competing with the best of South African racing drivers that we've seen at decent.
There's very few average humans in these cars in
this
series in 2025.
Not at all.
This is pretty much, it reminds me of Sonoma Hill Climb, where the best of the best of the best come together to compete. And even if you look at the people that are involved on the outskirts, not just the drivers, if you look at the crews that prepare cars, if you look on the admin side as well, who's arranging and organizing and what have you, you've got that core of top quality people that move around the country with all these different large events. And you just look at the planning and the organizing that goes on behind like this SA Endurance series. It's just next level. It's really, it's the top end of South African motorsport.
100%, 100%. I thought I was the only one that lets those words escape my mouth. I'm so glad to hear it coming
No,
from
it's
someone
fact.
else.
No, the planning, the organization, the layout. Wednesday morning, the guys were here already laying cables, etc., etc. It was all planned out and laid out. There was nothing left to chance. It is a highly oiled, mean machine that makes it possible to draw the best car-driver combinations in South Africa and create a top quality series, which draws massive viewership. So for those of you that are sitting at home watching this, believe you me, you're not alone. You might be alone in the lounge, but there's thousands of other people watching this with you as well.
100%, yeah. You've got company all over here at the circuit, in the metal, so to speak, and also on our YouTube stream. Of course, a lot of the fans joining and getting a piece of the action from all across the world. We get such a lovely array of fans tapping into the South African motorsport frequency as it stands. We're at round 2, and it is the KILLARNEY, the SAES, 6 hours of KILLARNEY. It's really going to be an exciting evening of racing. Come tomorrow from 2 o'clock onwards, we're setting the scene as a championship, as far as the championship stands, which is so hard to tell apart for a lot of the competitors. It's only been 2 rounds, and so it's all to play for. You get competitors like, for example, the G&H Transports, who haven't set a mark on the board in their class, but they know they're in it for a shot. That's why they're here, and it's not too late coming into this race. It's going to be Ricky Jani as well as Ant Blunden in that 511, the Audi R8. So we're going to have a lot to chat about and a lot to calculate as the night progresses into a scenario like this, where all you have is your racing instincts, a very loud sound ahead or behind you, bright lights.
Hopefully behind you.
Hopefully.
Preferably behind you.
It's going to be very interesting for a lot of the racing drivers.
Camera following through there on the backdraft Cobra of Andre Betancourt, Pedro Garcia, Remy Duyer, and Christian Boucher. So we've got, that's the only car that I can see that does not have a single South African driver in it.
And again, that interesting array of talents coming up from across our borders. It tells you the pedigree of the series. It tells you the appeal of the series and what it is. And I think it's, I guess, fitting that we come to this juncture of the conversation when it comes to this particular crop of cars, because the Backdraft series combines that competitiveness, that affordability, that ease of access, low barriers of entry. You literally can arrive and drive. We've seen many a scenario where one competitor, for example, at the previous rendition of the KILLARNEY round of our racing, had to step out of one car and hire themselves a backdraft, such as the efficiency of that TR Tech built V8 Roadster and the overall setup that Tony and Brian Martin have put together for all these competitors to be able to enjoy their racing as stress-free as possible. If you are stressed in the V8 Roadsters, you're really loading it up on yourself.
Make no mistake.
More than the setup that you have going there.
How nice to see Marco de Cunha back out on circuit again.
Indeed.
It comes from, like, it's decades. It's
Yeah.
like you grew up with that name kind of thing. And
Is it a case of I should have been there?
Well, yeah.
I don't have the grey hairs to talk about it. So.
No mistake. Mario da Silva, Steve Trutter, and Fabian Lance. I think Fabian Lance is the son of Peter Lance.
Daughter.
Nice to see Peter Lance that came to a 4 in Group N racing in a Uno Turbo for Nissan South Africa back in the day. Fabian, his son, if I've got it correct, that is out there now as well.
Fabian, his daughter, I believe you meant to say, but yeah, very, very impressive racing driver. She has already built up such an incredible name for herself before she even stepped into a backdraft. And the wealth of knowledge she has as well, and how she's very generous with it and in sharing, and just how to make your way around the circuit. I mean, the conversations I was listening between her and Mario are quite interesting in terms of the insights he communicates, and her taking up that information and relaying it back to them and see where they can find time. It's really, really interesting to see.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually standing at the back of their pits listening to them earlier on, and coming from a family with a daughter that's raced successfully here at KILLARNEY as well. It was very interesting to hear her comeback when she was asked a question. She was told something, and then she was asked a question, and the way she related the info back, she understood the workings of the motor car. And it was as clear as daylight when she answered. She was very confident in her assessment, and that helps to do setups on a car as well.
100%. So I've spent quite a bit of time with Fabian Lantz, especially around karting circles, and I can picture the exact moment when she made that point. So what she does is she'll lean on one leg and sort of put all her weight on the one leg, lift up her hands and sort of make a motion with pinkies flared out a bit, and then emphasize the point.
The
and it hits
movement of
home.
the steering
That's
wheel.
exactly it. And with such ease and grace, it's really quite
like a dance move.
100%, fully.
Well, oh, look at that. The Cunha, no, I almost thought for a second it is the 113 that still leads out.
Pedro Garcia.
In this one, it's a 126.66. And then the 88 of De Cunha on a 127. And then the 42 car that's coming through behind that. Look, it's just the first results that's coming through now for this group that's out there on circuit as well. The 42 car being Dan Hirsch and Stuart Kidgel, the backdraft 42.
Yep, Stuart trying to make a mark on the benchmark of either sub or above the 1 minute 20 mark. And we're fully into night conditions at the moment. And Cape Town's a very unique a place to be around these times, whether it's at sunset or at sunrise. What is happening? I mean, today, in my opinion and assessment of things, sunrise was actually at 8.
It was
because it was very
close to that,
overcast.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look, what is the time now? I mean, we are
5 minutes past 6.
5 minutes past 6.
Yep.
So keep in mind that in 24 hours from now, we'll have an hour 55 to go, and this is the amount of light that you're going to have. It just might be a bit wetter.
Yeah. So it's important actually to
Slash, it might be a lot wetter.
Oh man, I tried to cut you off as well as I could, but you just had to add that there. It's certainly a possibility. And an interesting characteristic here, the wall. Can you maybe talk to us about the effect the wall has on protecting? Does it actually affect what the head or tailwind does when cars draw up near to it?
Depending on the wind direction, if it's a normal Cape Southeaster, which is the normal direction, going closer to the wall will help you, because the wind, if you're sitting in the cars coming basically from a 2 o'clock direction, from the pits over the pit wall towards you, because that, as you'll see the banners around the circuit when they show another shot down the front, mate.
Yeah.
We've got a camera here, right? Yep. Oopsie, there we've got a spinner in turn 2.
Oy, that is Stewie.
That's the 42 car.
Yep, it is Stewie Kidgel, who just spun out there, and he's going to have to shake the dust off for the remainder of the lap and try and get back into...
Take a deep breath, wipe the tears away, and keep on trucking. So yes, up against the wall, depending on the wind direction, can make a difference, yes. And then also when it comes to drafting behind somebody, the American term is drafting, not slipstreaming.
Okay.
That also, there's a lovely replay, as I said earlier on these replays, I think, for all when the weather gets bad tomorrow, and I harp on it because I think it's going to have a major effect on round 3 of SA Endurance Series 2025. If the weather changes, it's going to change the shape of things. And I think those replays are going to come in pretty handy. The 88 car coming through to complete yet another lap. We'll see how those times change as they come across the line.
Indeed, and we're bearing down on the close of this particular session for driver number 3 of Group B. So Da Cunha at the moment, the man to beat with the 126.5. Of course, the cars competing against him won't quite be able to beat him because they're in 2 different classes, even though they're both on the south of the benchmark when it comes to the 1 minute 20 mark. So Garcia second there. Garcia and Kidgel is more of the battle perhaps we can speak about, and there's quite some time between them. 126.6 for Garcia. Kidgel had a bit of an oopsie, so he might want to rehash, but we're looking at close to the end of the session, so there's not quite a lot of time to be able to set another benchmark. There's a clear indicator there. If you look at the color, the backing colors of the numbers next to these racing drivers' names determines their racing class. When you're keeping up with us as we race, so you know exactly who's competing against who, and you're clear as to when to be excited or and when not to be quite angry about what's going on in front of you. It does get quite passionate around here, and we see all sorts of characters and emotions flaring. Quite fun and entertaining to be here on the circuit, and even equally, some would say, from a distance, from wherever you are around the world, welcome if you just joined us, you're exactly on time because you get a sense of what it's going to be like when we get into tomorrow's night racing.
Welcome to episode 1 of All You Need to Know About SA Endurance Series KILLARNEY International 2025.
100%. You're going to hear it from Gary Fleming and myself, and you're going to hear it from Steve Koenig. You're going to hear it from Themba Khumalo, Chloe Grace Mbanza, and Nadine Wilkin. That is the talented team that is before you for the broadcast for the remainder of the weekend. An incredible community
Did you say the
of
quietly spoken Nadine Wilkin? I'm just checking if we're talking about the same person here. What a personality.
Incredible personality, and really enjoyable to work with everyone on this team. It really continues to grow into a family, and you can see we're a racing team, just different machinery, I would say.
And what a production crew.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obi Van, I love it.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, man.
And around this time, you get to see all the lights as well, like the purple glow, the stand, the third. I could walk in there and press something. If I knew what it could do, I really would. The temptation is really hard to hold back. But people who haven't held back over this qualifying session, Dacunya, as we said, 126.5, Garcia, 126.6, Kidjo, a couple of oopsies, but he managed to put down a 129.4, and Tritter there, Stewie Tritter, with a 132.7 in the number 55 V8 Roadster.
Wow. We haven't even started race day.
No. Did you get the... Sorry, I beg your pardon, that's Steve Tritter in the number 55. Yeah, we haven't quite started the racing, and the excitement is already creeping in and setting the scene for where we're at and where we're going for the remainder of the weekend. Qualifying, I guess it tells you where you're at in theory. It's not very... It is representative, but it isn't. It really just decides where you're standing.
It is reality, but it is theory, because at the end of the day, you cannot really determine what your competitors are doing in terms of playing it safe, not over-revving it, not over-stressing it, saving it all for tomorrow. Maybe didn't get their best laps in because of changing conditions. Going out now, it's dark for the first time. So you might think, oh, well, we are half a second quicker, but it could be because of something that affected the other team or teams around you. So it's fact, but it's also fiction right now. It's an indicator. It's not a guarantee.
Should we call your particular branch of philosophy Garyism or like Flemingism?
As opposed to a Murrayism. As Murray Walker would say, in motorsport, anything is possible, anything can happen, and it usually does.
Indeed. Right.
One of the greatest commentators ever in the history of motorsport, Murray Walker, for Formula One.
Absolutely.
Amazing stuff.
Indeed. Set a benchmark for us all to aspire to. And I think set alight the passion for a lot of people for the sport, literally generations.
Well, a commentary like what he did attracted so many people and held so many people for so many years. So, one of the icons. You don't have to be just a driver to be an icon in motorsport. You can do it in other formats. But look at that, for iconic 78 years down the line here at Killarney International Raceway. All lit up, the grass is green. So I'm going to say the grass is green because it's only this time of the year. Normally it's brown because there's a lot of sunshine. But it's looking beautiful here, well prepared already and good to go for the action. So for those of you that are not going to make it down to Killarney, we will be going out live tomorrow. Prince, let the people know exactly where they can get hold of us.
Yeah, 100%. We're live, of course, on YouTube, live on Supersport 215. Where all the action is going to be available for you. The lights go off at 2 p.m. So be sure to get us. And if you want to engage with us, you're free to do so and chat to us. Let us know what you see, what you think, what you feel throughout the race on our YouTube stream. Get in touch with us on our socials as well. I beg your pardon. Facebook, Instagram, all of that good stuff. We're there. And of course, if you are in and around these parts of the world, in this part of the southern hemisphere, come and join us. Get a ticket from as little as 50 Rand to
There
actually
is
be here.
Nothing better than being at the circuit, and
100%.
It's pretty much open access right around the circuit. You can move around from one corner to the next to get a different perspective from all the different angles.
Yep.
But then apart from that, you can also get into the pit area.
100%. Now, looking at one of the cars getting out now, getting a full sense of, I think that is the Nova Proto. Two unmistakable colors there. We've got that unique halo, like a halo of light above the car there where the scoop goes. And that's a recent addition I hadn't quite seen with the Nova Proto 2. Beautiful to see, unmistakable. And it lets racing drivers know, as the Nova is perhaps getting past traffic or threatening a competitor in the same class, you know exactly who's behind you. And that's the GNH Transport Audi R8. We'll get a sense of who's in the car at the moment. It's the E511 might be Ant Blunden. I don't think I've seen his name flash across the transponder as yet, if I am not mistaken. But we'll get a sense of exactly what's going on.
I haven't seen Ant Blunden, so I think you're pretty correct. In there with Gianni and Riccardo Giancaro, or the R8 GT4 that's out there on circuit right now.
Yep, and getting ready to see
right,
now.
Folks, I'm going to take a short break, and the voice, the knowledge, the info, the insight, the man that's going to be in contact with you when you go and put questions and comments up tomorrow, the man himself, Mr. Stephen Curry. Good evening to you.
Let me say good evening to Steve Curry. Yeah, Steve, last I saw you, there was a lot more light. There was a lot more light around. It wasn't looking as dark as we see things. You've gotten a chance to get onto ground level. We're slightly elevated. We don't see quite what's happening yet. Temperature, okay, I can get a sense of what's going on. It's getting close to ice cold. But in the pits, in the paddocks, what's going on? What sense of confidence is there amongst the teams with qualifying so far?
I went and had a walk around, had a few chats. A lot of the drivers are confident with their times at the moment, still skeptical about the weather that is going to come into play. But a lot of our more Highland drivers coming from Joburg, coming from Bloemfontein, that type of area, are quite amazed of how dark it suddenly got. And a lot of the teams are concerned pit lane's going to get very busy. It's very tight down there, and that's going to be a factor that comes into play for the race as well. So little alterations being done to the pit boards, just any way to try and guide the drivers into the pit box, and also lots of planning and talking to the neighbors, saying, listen, when roughly are you planning to get into the pits? And that's where it comes in. So that is going to be a difficult one. But so far, for GNH, they've been doing a fantastic job of just keeping themselves out there. They're confident, relaxed with the car. And last time we saw that Audi R8, it was on fire at Swartkorps.
My word. So they'd have to, a lot of recovery. I think they would love to leave Swartkorps behind and try and forget about it. And I think the best way to do it is put some points on the board, and it's exactly what the focus is. But also a very, very happy bunch are the GNH Transport team. Always awesome to chat to them and just get a sense of what's going on, you know, what it's like to be in those cars. And I guess it's an interesting mix, being friendly and competitive at the same time, but such is the nature of the series here with SAES. And we're looking at the end of qualifying, the beginning of the mandatory night practice, and we're just at the start of what will be an incredible day of racing for round 3 here with the SAES 6 hours of Killarney. Come 2 o'clock tomorrow, it's lights off, and you better be there no matter how you join us, live here on YouTube, live on Supersport 215, or in the flesh right here. Get your tickets and come down for as little as 50 Rand. We're looking forward to seeing you. It is the SAES series connected by Vodacom for you.